Good evening. It is Monday night. It is the Forum. It is our spiritual home. But hey, spiritual homes are there to be sort of binned and moved off, and a new spiritual home it can be established whenever you want. So it is the Forum. I am Ray Dicko, your host tonight, and with me I've got Philip Casey. How you doing, Phil?
I'm great, Ray.
Yeah, in good form. I can see
I'm
that.
Best form I've been in a long time, buddy. Outside the result, but apart from that, yeah, great.
Very good. And we've got Pete over in Barcelona. How's it going, Pete?
Hanging on in there, hanging in. Not as in good a form as Phil, but you know, it is what it is. What can you do?
Well, we'll get your thoughts as well at a local, from a local point of view as well. If you've sort of gauged the kind of the thoughts of people over there and everything through the press today. And we've got Chris Brack. How you doing, Chris?
Apathetic, mate. How are you?
Apathetic. One of our legacy fans. The new catchphrase that's emerged over the last 24 hours.
Might get a t-shirt with that. Might get a t-shirt with that on.
Yeah. Right. So the way we're going to approach this tonight is we're going to spend the first roughly half an hour discussing the game that's just unfolded. It was intended to be a match review, but obviously with what's happened over the last 24 hours means that we're going to split this then after the match review, and we're going to go on to a discussion around the ESL. It's quite catchy, isn't it, lads? Well, Phil thinks it's catchy anyway. So we'll start off with the game. Look, it's one of the strangest games for a long time. Obviously, with what's happened today, like the whole kind of, you know, even if we go back to your show, Chris, on Friday, and the preview and everything that was associated with trying to get 3 points, and obviously the result going forward on Saturday, and then we get to tonight, and even when it comes to the match lineups, it's hard to even kind of put any importance on it. But I'll start with you, Chris. Obviously, there was a change in defence. You've got Fabinho slotting back in centre back, and Phillips dropping out, and then you've got Mo Salah dropping out at the other end of the pitch, and the front three of Jota, Firmino, and Mane. What were your thoughts on the lineup?
I was surprised there was no Salah. I thought you play top goal scorer because, to be fair, the other two, Manny and Bobby, aren't in form and haven't been in form for a while. So surely you start with two form guys. But to be fair, first off, apart from one Fabinho misplaced pass, I thought Liverpool actually were fairly comfortable. The only thing I thought at half time was we messed up too many good opportunities for like the final ball, which, you know, I feel like a broken record. I feel like I've said that every game this year. But the only positive I could say, probably in the last 5 or 6 games, is at least we're actually creating chances where you go, we should score there. Whereas some of the games we watched recently be going like, yeah, we lost 1-0 to Burnley. Yeah, we did, yeah. What happened? Burnley scored and we just passed the ball around. Nothing happened. So, you know, I thought first half Jota looked really sharp. I was quite impressed with Jota. I was pleased Manny got his goal. Bobby was just there, but didn't really do much. And you know, I was pleased for Milner that he's playing, you know, against his old club. I thought Milner did fine. I thought Thiago was okay, and Kabak I thought was solid first half, and second half it flipped round and Leeds deserved the point. You know, Alisson was man of the match second half. He kept us in it, and then, you know, the only thing we can really gripe about is some really poor finishing, not just by the usual suspects. You know, Jota, the header, you know, you should bury that. It's a basic header. Salah should take his chance, and then Ox just sums up his career at the moment with Liverpool. It's just another big opportunity missed and fluffed his lines. So, does it mean top four's gone? If it matters, I don't think it does. I've still maintained with 7 games to go, you probably needed at least 5 wins. So you've probably got a little bit of wiggle room, because there's no way the lads around us are all going to win their 7 games. It's not possible. Yeah. So it just makes it more difficult. But, you know, I know we're going to talk about it later, but it was hard to get up for the game a little bit because part of you thinks like it's really matter now because if we're going to be in this other competition, it doesn't actually matter if we win this game. But like anything with football, within after 10 minutes, I kind of get into the game, then you kind of forget about it for a little bit until full time.
Yeah, I mean, Nalatuba said, "Does this really matter?" I mean, Pete, I mean, Chris touches on it there. There was a bit of that pre-game. Really, most fans were interested, first of all, in what Klopp had to say, because we knew that the interview was coming at some point around 7:15. So, you get past that, you get to the team news. He obviously changes it up. Once we're into that first half, I think we do kind of maybe, as a fan base, we do kind of concentrate on the game. And the reality is, I thought we were decent enough first half. I mean, we start fairly brightly. Let's fast forward it onto the goal. It's a nice move, and obviously Trent is again after a bit of an up and down few weeks and a lot of critics, he's absolutely pivotal to a score and that opening goal. And it's a calm finish by Mane because he hasn't been in the best of form, but he slots it away. And I think at that point, we did deserve to be 1-0 up, didn't we?
Yeah, again, delighted for Trent. He's certainly going forward. He's the best fullback in the league, and arguably the best fullback there is around. To be honest, all the nonsense that's been talked over, reactionary nonsense over the last few weeks, has been, laughable. But you made the point earlier, Ray. It doesn't matter. It always matters. I mean, look, we'll talk about our views on what's going on later on, but it always matters, and I think we all have an idea of what's going to happen in the end. But for me, let's be honest with you, we're wasteful, we're not clinical, and it's between four of them now. You look at, you go, who's actually going to step up and grab those doubles and put chances away. It's the same story with Liverpool. I only really worry about us when we're not making chances. We make chances week in, week out, even when we're shocking, to be honest with you. Again, frustrating. We make chances tonight. No point pointing fingers. Different lads will point fingers at Wijnaldum. They'll point fingers all over the park, but you can't make and have the amount of possession and make the amount of chances we get that we make and not score at least 2 goals. It's, to be honest, that's the bottom line. This team is crying out for somebody to share the burden with Mohamed Salah. Nobody is. I know Mane scored tonight. Great. It's his 3rd goal, I think, in I don't know how many games, but it's not enough. But it was nice to see that Klopp had the confidence to leave Salah out. But again, with being out of Europe, play our best players would be my view. But I'm not in the training sessions, and obviously the will there is to freshen things up. But we need somebody to share that load with Mohamed Salah if he's going to stay. It's not sustainable otherwise. We're just far too reliant on him for goals. Far too reliant.
To be fair, though, isn't that Jota? Because he's on 12 goals in 20 games.
Yeah, but it wasn't tonight.
And it wasn't tonight, but in general, he has been sharing the load, I would say. The argument is we probably need a third. That's where we're lacking.
Listen, injuries aside, I agree with you.
Our main striker. I mean, look, Bobby Firmino is there. He's kind of, he's in some respects supposed to be our main striker. He should be at least chipping in with 10 to 15 goals in a side of Liverpool's quality, and he doesn't look like he's gonna get anywhere near that really in terms of league goals. So Phil, look, staying with the football for now. We get to half time, we go in 1-0 up. Leeds don't really seem to, it's not the best league, from a Leeds performance perspective, wasn't their kind of fluid sort of attack and football that we'd often see from them. But in the second half, we've given ourselves a perfect platform. For a second, let's assume that this is a race for top 4 that matters. But in that second half, we just see the same of what we've seen so many times this season. It's what's kind of infuriated so many fans, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Look, I think, for me, the whole thing stems around the fact that this team is built on intense physical attributes that allowed us to outrun, outpress, outpass, outthink the opponents. and this team is physically done. If it's like we're using a 39-year-old James Milner to be the prodding point in this midfield, because
for the third time in 3 important games.
Yeah, but like I look at it, Thiago has a good first half, but then he seemed to get leggy in the second half. When Wijnaldum is done, like I'm going to tell you now, I from what I can see, Mane is done, Wijnaldum is done, Firmino is done. We can't give Wijnaldum a new contract, because I think a guy in his 30s, his legs look like he can't do that intensive up and down across the pitch. Yes, he could go for you all day. Like, he still has that base level of fitness that's there. But when it comes to being intensively up and down the pitch, the way we've seen for the last 2 to 3 years, it's just not there. You look at Firmino. The big thing that we could all hold about Firmino when he wasn't scoring goals or even making goals was his work rate was off the charts, and the amount of ground he covers. Fella looks like he's running on porridge. Like those guys remind me of when Lucas had to play in that midfield, and it used to be disgusting to watch. The fella couldn't walk. It was like he was running at the speed of a walk. It's just terrible. It's looking at these dogs on the pitch at this stage, and then looking at the bench and looking at what he brings on. I'll be honest with you. I think Klopp's choices and his management this season has been absolutely fucking atrocious at times. Like, I'm not holding back here. His substitutions tonight are deplorable. Absolutely deplorable. Bringing that Oxlade fella on, like, he's done. He shouldn't even be in the squad. I'd rather see a young fella get a run at this stage. He's done. He's absolutely done.
Or even Shaqiri. I mean, we've seen Shaqiri come on and do, Shaqiri has in 5 minutes.
Has more energy and could do more things than Oxlade. Oxlade was a 1.5 season wonder, or a half season wonder. And then that injury that he's had, he's done. The fella is no physical threat, has no ability to get up and down the pitch anymore, completely done. I'm looking at, like, you just look at this, and I wouldn't, if it was one game, I'd say this is probably an overreaction and I was just annoyed. But it's not. This is a repeated pattern we've seen since before Christmas with these players, and it's the same players. And sadly, I think Mane's legs are gone. I think Firmino's legs are 100% gone. I think Mane's legs are gone. And Thiago isn't the fella who's going to do box to box. You need to have Fabinho in there alongside him, and you need a Hendo in alongside him as well, or even a Curtis Jones, or someone who's going to give you that added level. Thiago reminds me of when Gerrard was playing that brilliant role under Rodgers in that 13-14 season, where he used to just sit in the midfield basically and was able to spray the balls around. And when he got up high along the box, he could play those little slide rule passes that got players in, right? But in that team, Gerrard needed Hendo on one side of him, and he played best when they had Joe Allen on the other side. And it wasn't when they had Lucas anywhere near the team. Like, this is because he had legs around him. And if you have Fabinho there and you have Hendo there, you've got legs around Thiago, right? So, I'm like, for me, I'm going to tell you, like, I'm just looking at that team and I just get so frustrated looking at the same thing over and over again. And I see people slagging off Robbo. I actually put it in the group, and I said it. Robbo looks like Jose Enrique at the moment, right? He's doing all right defensively and offering nothing in attack. But we signed a fella for 12 million or whatever it was, Tsimikas from Olympiacos last year. And I may as well have signed Mr. Blobby, because we haven't seen him since the start of the season, right? And if he isn't at this, if he's at this point, if he's not capable of getting a game at any point, it was literally a big waste of money. We could have spent that money on signing a centre-back. Well, let's be straight about this. We could have used that money on signing the centre-back instead of signing this fella. But then, all these things, we've had all the conversations around what's the point, yada, yada, yada. There is a point. The league is the bread and butter, right? And people can get on their high horse about the ESL, and we'll talk about that in a while, right? But ultimately, we will be playing in a domestic league, I'd say, because otherwise the repercussions will be too big. The aim of the league is to finish top of the league. Anywhere else is completely irrelevant, and everywhere else in the league has only been made relevant by UEFA's money grab. Okay, so ultimately, when we get back to the purity of the league being first place, only 6 teams will essentially be able to win that league, which has been the way it's been for the best part of 20 years at this stage. So there's no real change. It's just what it is. And when I look at this, I look and I say we have no excuses left to not invest our time and efforts in winning this league. None. There's no excuses. There's no excuses. We've won a league recently. We put ourselves in this position, and due to bad gambles, it's turned on us. And every time I look at this team, with the odd exception since Christmas, you just look at the same issues over and over and over.
Yeah, Dean Regan says, super chat from Dean, losing hope in Thiago, lads, offering nothing. And just on the super chats, by the way, if we do become an ESL team, there will be a minimum £10 for super chat, just in line with our new stature as a ESL founding father. So, Chris, Phil touches on signings. Yeah, Thiago there getting a sort of a negative rap. I think we've had a return from Jota this season. Keita, it's looking like a bust at this stage. Tsimikas, as Phil mentions there. I mean, I think there's an element of Kabak as well, obviously, emergency signing of sorts. Like, some of these signings now are starting to look a little bit kind of half-hearted in some respects in terms of what they're actually delivering. Are you now, again, irrespective of what happens with the structure of the competitions, are you concerned that we haven't really kind of kicked on from this position of strength that we were in?
To a point, yeah. I mean, some of the things I know we could talk about Matip and Gomez's injury records, but I don't think you can legislate for 3 centre-backs getting that big long-term injuries. And I do think that's why Gini looks knackered this year, because of, and we've talked about, I think Phil's mentioned before, we've had to play Fabinho, Henderson, or engine room at centre-back, which means Gini's having to do something that I don't think he needs to do or is designed to do. Whereas I think if you have a Gini only doing 25 games a season, I think you still probably see a very lively, healthy Gini who can press. I don't think Gini playing 38 games this season is doing him any favours. But unfortunately, I think what's more been exposed is some of the fringe players, the likes of your Caters, your Chambers. It's like we're picking up the same lads, but we can't trust them. Origi, we can't trust him. Shaqiri, to be honest, yes, when he comes on, he's great. He's got a bit of that Maverick style in him, but he goes missing for 6 months with thigh injuries, calf injuries. What's happened to us this year is too many of our probably more durable players have gone out, and that's probably highlighted to us some players who actually we probably wish we could rely on. I mean, the Tsimikas one, he may as well be Ben Davis.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
12 million Ben Davis, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Thiago, look, I think he's settled in. I do agree with Phil. I think if he has a Fabinho and a Henderson next to him, which I think was the plan, I think he's the best. I mean, today, if the strikers could shoot, he has 2 assists today. So for a guy who offers nothing, he gets in. I mean, he has managed to stop getting a yellow card every bloody game, which is a bit of a handy, and actually got a bit of the Fernandinho cumulative tackles and not getting booked for. He seems to be getting better at that. So I don't really worry about Thiago. I do think there's enough credit in the bank with what he's done at previous clubs and what he can do for us. And if we do end up in a Super League, playing those type of teams suits his game. But yeah, I mean, the likes of Tsimikas and the defensive guys, they leave a lot to be desired. Jota, you can say, is probably the biggest success we've had by a country mile.
Yeah. And Pete, just back onto the game, obviously the second half, we do have some chances, half chances. Mo comes on, puts himself in some very, good positions, can't hit the target. It's not the first time we've seen this. And obviously, 4 minutes to go, we get punished. We get punished from
giving away too many corner kicks.
Yeah, except there's a lot of corner kicks given away tonight by both sides, actually, and ultimately they score, a fairly routine header from a corner 4 minutes to go. But at the same time, you could see it coming, couldn't you, Pete? Because Bamford hit the bar. Allison's made some good saves. Actually, possibly our man of the match tonight.
He made a point blank save from Bamford. I thought was pretty impressive. Bamford puts it anywhere else, he scores. But for me, again, that inevitability that you're talking about, Ray, comes from a lack of confidence. You've all played in sides where you're getting beat every week and you're waiting. You're just waiting for, well, not getting beat, but not winning games. And you're waiting for the opposition to come up with something. There's an inevitability about it. Now, the fact that we're completely overrun by a young, fit side is not just disappointing, but it kind of really underlines the inevitability of just that. But yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, Liverpool and late goals, I mean, I look enviously at Manchester United. At none of their players, literally none of them, but they seem to have this expectation. If you look at them yesterday, they just expect to go and steamroll somebody in the last couple of minutes, and they go and they do that without playing well. It's very, very difficult to take that. It's almost like somebody has handed you the team a script, and everybody wants to stick to it. For me, it's we're missing. I think we're missing a lot of things. We're missing energy, leadership, as we keep talking about. There's nobody to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck and say, with 15 minutes to go, hang on a second here, boys. We need to do what we need to do. Not helped by Klopp's changes. It's the perfect storm against us. But looking at the table, we're still in and about it for we would have went third tonight. We're still in and about. I think are we not third or fourth? Are we not fourth? No.
No, we would have gone fourth, wouldn't we? We would have gone in the top four.
We'd have gone fourth on goal difference, but with 2 points off. But
I think, to be honest with you, do I think West Ham will be there or thereabouts? I think they'll fall away. I think even Leicester, hopefully, will focus on the cup final that they've got into. I still think that we can pick something. I mean, Leeds away 1-1, considering what they're capable of, is not the worst result in the world. It's other results that have destroyed us, to be honest.
The only thing I would say about your Man United point is, I would say Man United are probably what Gav probably said we need in the summer, which is, I don't need 9 and 10 out of 10 players. I'd rather take a 7 out of 10 player, but who's available every week. Because if you look at their centre backs, would you want Maguire and Lindelof versus ours? Probably not. But Maguire and Lindelof are rarely injured. Fred, he's rarely injured. Now, you might say they're great players, but they're always available. You can kind of work around their deficiencies or their shortcomings. And the one thing I would say with United is, whether you like their players or not, I would say the drop-off between the bench and their starting 11 isn't massive. I would say if they're going to kick on to beat a City, they probably need to find some players the next level. But I would say their drop-off is a bit small. That's where we need to find probably someone like, who maybe is the equivalent of a Chamberlain, but he's available every week.
Yeah, I mean,
whoever that is, because that's what,
to be honest
with you.
Watching, to be honest with you, nothing against them personally, but watching someone like that warm up and come on and make a difference.
Come here, the frustrating part for me is that we had enough chances to win that game, and even before they scored the equaliser, we have enough chances to put it to bed. We should have put it to bed in the first half. Mm-hmm. This comes back to fellas that we should have that should do better. Fellas who should deliver. Like Salah misses a great chance going through, but I think arguably the better chance was the one where Meslier passes the ball straight to him and his first touch lets him down. Now, but to me, Salah's always been the type of player that's better when he starts from a game than comes on from the bench, because it seems to take him 5 or 10 minutes to get that first touch working. But while saying that, Jota missed 2 absolute sitters on his head off corners, right? The one that he headed down into the ground and bounced back up. Like, Firmino may as well have been. It just so fucking annoys me when I see that fella playing. And then I look at Mane and he scores a goal, which is great. But he should have had 2, if not 3 goals. Like, he gets into.
But again, Ray, if you're a top class centre forward, I mean the big names, and we had this conversation before, and you're looking at Liverpool now, you are thinking to yourself, I can be a hero there. I can make a real difference. If I know I said this before, but if I'm the ones that people talk about, like Kylian Mbappe, do I want to go and play in the museum at Madrid, or do I want to be superstar at Liverpool?
Sorry, Pete. There was a stupid stat thrown out tonight about Mane, Firmino, and Salah have now scored 300 goals. Salah scored 123 of them.
Phenomenal.
Right? If you take Salah away, Firmino and Mane have scored 177, and Firmino has 3 goals this year. Like,
I know. I think what there obviously was there were seasons gone by where Firmino was chipping in. Like his goals return has never been fantastic, and it's always been very streaky as well. But this season, it's just non-existent. I mean, he's scored.
Mohamed Yogi has it right there. Bobby is playing like Lucas's love child. Bobby is the Lucas's centre forwards at this stage, right? We're just keeping him around because he's a nice bloke. Like Lucas blocked me on Twitter ages ago. It's hilarious, right? But right, honestly, he was every time I think of when we are crap, I think of him. He was literally the epitome of when we were shite. He was never in the team when we were doing stuff and achieving stuff and getting into the Champions League, and he was always in it when we were absolutely rank average, right? And I look at Firmino now, and I'm just there going, if we signed him as a squad player in the summer and he was putting those performances in, there will be knives out from left, right, and centre. We'll be saying, "Who do we sign this imposter?" Chris touched on it. The fact that we have spent 50 odd million on Keita, who was the worst signing we have ever made, bar none. We waited a season to get him in. Honestly, no, not even close. We waited a year to get Keita into that team, right? And we have a problem now where we had to drop one of our centre mids back in, and we needed legs in that midfield, and we had to call on a 39-year-old James Milner to give us those legs and that attacking threat. That's an embarrassment for Keita. It's an absolute embarrassment for the fans who have pinned their tails to the Naby Keita trailer and are now disappearing off over the hill and saying that he wasn't treated fairly at the club. Like, this is it's just a disgrace looking at what's turned out from these players. And that player, he needs to take a long hard look at himself. What he's done on the pitch, the way he's thrown in the door, it's just disgrace. I am sick to death of the level of effort that's gone in with some of these players this year. And I'm just sick of it. Like, we're going to be talking about this European Super League, right? And you're going to be hearing about it's the fans don't want it and the players don't want it. Those players need to go and lock themselves in a shed and look at themselves and say to themselves, just shut up. Until you are doing it on the pitch, you've no right to speak. It's an embarrassment. It's an absolute embarrassment.
The decision to play Naby in the Champions League game is still such a head scratcher. It's actually it's backfired so badly. He's almost sort of embarrassed into Klopp. This is almost embarrassed into not playing him again, sort of thing this season. When if he hadn't have thrown him into that situation, we could easily have seen him, starting league games or coming off the bench and trying to rebuild something for the back end of the season. But it's now almost so bad that it's just like we'll shelve this. If we're gonna give you one last chance, you're gonna have to hit the ground running at the start of next season. We're gonna have to see the real Naby Keita, because this season's kind of is just sort of all.
But we are seeing the real Naby Keita. He's a nice, tidy player. He's just physically not able for the rigors, the requirements of playing in the Premier League. It's that simple. Some fellas just aren't up for it. He's one of them. He's not. What's he? 26. He's not up for it. He's not. There's no all these false dawns. It's like Paul Pogba.
It was like Veron at United. Veron did United. He did Chelsea, and Veron's a very, very good player. He just didn't suit the English game. I don't want to sound like I keep getting on Keita and Chamberlain's back. But at this stage now, it shouldn't be seen as a risk to throw them in. And that was the phrase I kept saying is, "Oh, it's risky throwing it in." If you're a 50 million, the ability he's got, it shouldn't be a risk. People mentioned, I know you jokingly said Aquilani, but when Aquilani played, he did produce, and you did go, he's a nice, tidy player. Actually, he's a good player. He just physically wasn't up to it, but he did actually do stuff on the pitch, and I can live with that. I can live with that a little bit, but unfortunately, he's just not done it now. And the only
thing I say, Bracky, is for a fella that's not been in the side, to put him in against Kroos and Modric, what are you doing? To arguably the best midfield partnership of the last 15 years.
My thought though is, go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, our take and our belief when we signed him was this fella was more than capable of playing against the Kroos and Modric's. When we signed him, that's what he was there to do. He was to take us on to the next level. He could do a bit of absolutely everything, but not just do it, but do it brilliantly. Right?
He's supposed to be Iniesta.
No, he's not. He was meant to be a box-to-box terrier with a wicked shot on him, and could do a bit more than just sit in front of a defence and funnel things together like Gini had done or Hendo had done. He was meant to be an evolution to what it is. I think we're paying that. I'm really scared, and the idea that I'm really, really scared about this, because we had a window. This is where I would criticise the transfer decisions that were made. We had a window where it was possible to replace 1 to 2 players every summer without having to go out and do a big refresh of the squad, right? Which is what the best clubs have always done. Always bring in one or two that are better than what's in your first team, and that pushes one or two into your squad, and you can dump off the crap then, right? And it makes no real impact. You just get better and better. That's how you recycle. Now we have an issue where we've got to change Firmino, Mane, Gini, Milner, Keita. And that's lads that play in the first team on a regular basis. We haven't even got to the back end of the pitch where we've got three centre-backs. One picks up repeated niggles. Another fella is prone to having long-term injuries. And we're hoping and praying, and I honestly think he will, that Virgil comes back as strong as he did beforehand. We still have no right-back cover, and we have no left-back cover. Now, look, I hate, like, when you break it down and think of it in the worst possible event, that's exactly what we're talking about here. And when we talk about Robertson being tired, look at Trent, his form is up and down. It's because we don't have the lads to put in. And we've tried to sign, we signed Tsimikas, we brought through Nico Williams. He gets such abuse from the fans and then from the way he was broken down in the press. We have no option now to rest Trent. I think ultimately he probably thinks, well, I'll play Gomez at right back if I have to rest Trent when he gets back. And it's like you have this much bigger rebuild than what should have been an evolution and an improvement and a refocusing of the tactics. I just think it's a bit scary. And I will say, I know we're going to talk about it, but if you take that into the logical, it's not a case that we have a season down now where we don't have Champions League football and we can just focus on the league for the whole thing. Because when this Super League goes ahead, we're in it. And we want to be competitive from the off, because the last thing we want to do is take all this flack, take all this hate, go in with these teams and be like the team that Rodgers put out against Real Madrid with Barini and the lad, Colo Touré and the lads going over there. Because that's the last thing we can afford to do, having made so much noise about being part of this European Super League.
Absolutely, yeah. So look, we'll wrap up on the game tonight. I'll go around the table and just ask one question, same question to everyone. I'll start with you, Pete. Do we finish in the top four?
Yeah. I mean, and not by virtue of the fact that we're any good, but the guys that are rivaling us, I don't have any fear of them. I looked at Leicester over the last couple of games; they've been awful, and West Ham, you just don't know what's going to happen with them. So yeah, I feel it. I feel that we will, but not because we're great, because we aren't.
So by default. So Chris, same question to you. We can only afford the maths of this now say we probably only afford one more slip. What do you think?
I'll say a hopeful yes.
A hopeful yes. Not confident though. And Phil, probably the most irrelevant question ever to you. But anyway, do we finish top four?
How many games have you left? We've 6 games left, is it?
6? Yeah.
6 games, 6 wins, 18
probably
points.
Have to beat United now at this stage, or
Yeah, 18 points gets you to 71. There's probably an argument that 68 probably gets you top 4, which would allow you one more slip. That's on the back that Leicester have to play United, Arsenal, and Tottenham in their last 3 games.
And Chelsea, I think they've left.
Sorry, United, Chelsea, and Tottenham in their last 3 games.
Do they play West Ham next? Does it? Maybe
Chelsea, West Ham next, isn't it?
Chelsea, West Ham next.
So
Chelsea in other games, yeah.
Chelsea have a shed load of tough games coming up, and West Ham have only got that Chelsea game left, and they've got a fairly easy run.
The only concern for West Ham is they're probably like us; they're dropping like flies.
Yeah,
injury.
Yeah, I just don't see how we can put that run of form together because we haven't done it all season. Right. Yeah. The only positive tonight was we didn't lose, so we're on in the league we're on a 4-game unbeaten streak or something. It is.
Yeah. The bad thing is our away form something like I think it's 1 loss in 7. That's the first. That's only the second game in 7 we've actually dropped points. The away form, surprisingly, is not bad. It's the horrific home form that's the concern. Newcastle, to me, I was more worried about Newcastle at home, which is next.
It is next.
I'm not worried about that.
Yes or no?
Yeah, we fell for that trap before.
I don't know. Last season we played them towards the end as well. We tend to play them sometime around May every single year. Even when they're not in the Premier League, we just end up playing them in May, just as a league match, just to see what happens.
Pretendy Cup.
Yeah. Thankfully, we've won a match at home, so that helps. But like
Stephen McCarthy thinks we'll finish top 4, and he's giving you awful stick here. Yeah, so
don't mind Steve. Oh, yeah. He said he wants to come to Dublin to take me on. He lives down in Cork. Those lads aren't even out of the county.
Yeah,
he's a legend.
Yeah, he's been lashing the comments in left, right, and centre. So I'll ask you one final time, Phil. It's the 3rd time. Yes or no?
What, we finished top 4?
Yeah.
I think we will.
Yes,
By a very, very slim margin. It could even be goal difference that gets us over the line.
Yeah.
Last
What
game
you
of the
saying,
season.
What you
Last
saying,
game
right?
of the season. I think we will last game of the season. I've said it for a few weeks now. I think it comes right down to the wire, and it might be one of those, as it stands, we'll be outside the top
Liverpool
four,
way.
we'll be inside the top four, and then we'll be outside the top four. It'll be one of those kind of last game of the season.
I hope Timo Werner misses a penalty and we take their place. It'd be lovely. I'd
that
love
would be
that.
nice, wouldn't
I
it?
hate that little rat.
But I guess it's still to be determined. Like, look, let's move it on. And Phil, I am actually gonna ask you to host this next section because I think
swap over, are we?
Yeah, you deserve this. I think you've come well equipped in your. Is that it's an NFL t-shirt?
The Bears.
You've come in full franchise.
The most storied franchise. The one of the founding members of the National Football League. That set in motion a great entity, a great game, great sport, and a great model for sports clubs to follow all around. Global model that sports clubs can only dream about mimicking. So, yeah.
Can I just I just want to ask this question here because Red Steve's saying, don't worry about our home form. We'll be playing in Dubai, US, China, anywhere but L4. Do you see this? Phil, do you see this leading onto games being played in far-flung parts of the world?
As in the European Super League?
Yeah.
I know Shawnee thought I was taking the piss and I was talking through my hoop, but I genuinely think when this ultimately settles down, this model that will now be implemented fundamentally changes the way football clubs are seen. They don't belong to cities. They don't belong to countries anymore. They are brands and franchises in themselves. And if the people won't pay the money, the franchise will move to somewhere that will pay the money.
Yeah, like in the United States. Hopefully not, because that's a nightmare. Yeah.
I'm not saying that I agree with that thing because I think it's terrible for when the teams up and leave those cities and it leaves a hole that was there before. But this isn't 1964. This isn't 1980. This is 2021. Okay. I'll open it. So I've been on this pod since when I set this pod up in 2012, 2014, with Andy and Steve-O and Trev back at the time. And since then, I've been a strong advocate of moving to a European Super League. And my view on that hasn't changed. I think we play so many irrelevant games. I think we play so many shit games like that game against Leeds tonight. It's nothing. People talk about tradition and heritage. That team is whatever it was, League One side that's come up through the ranks. Great story, brilliant. But ultimately, football changed in 1992. Football changed in the 90s. When the FA allowed the clubs to sell their rights and create a breakaway league, that ended the traditional football game. It ended it. It fundamentally ended it. When all the Sky, with Sky there banging on, you see Neville banging on, you see Carragher banging on, Sky came in and ripped what was the traditional football culture apart. It took the game away from ITV and BBC and put it in pay TV, right? And the only difference here was that the person that benefited was the Murdochs, right? That was who was benefiting from the creation of the Premier League. And who was the team that jumped on board at that stage? Man United. And who have built their commercial dominance off that model? Man United. So before we get into discussion whether it's good or a bad thing, I ask every Liverpool fan out there, do you want to be sitting on the station looking at the train pull away saying that's a terrible train, I don't want to be on that train? Or would you rather be sitting in the train looking out the window going, look at all this money, look at where we're going to, and look at what we're going to be able to do as the global football team that we are? Because Liverpool isn't a local football team. Manchester United isn't a local football team. They are global sporting franchises that has a reach of millions around the globe. And they belong as much to somebody in China as they do to the person in Liverpool. And that might strike at the very idea of the most disenfranchised feel at this moment in time. But there's a sense of this is our club that goes around the globe. And by creating a structure which allows all the fans who feel this globally, right? You have a bigger audience than you will ever get from a single domestic market or a competition run by UEFA. And the only reason UEFA are up in arms is that 3.5 billion that should be coming into their coffers is now going in directly to the club's coffers. This is not a fight between UEFA trying to do the right for the good of the clubs and the future of football. This is who gets control of the money. And the clubs who produce the product and who spend the money to create the product want that money. And it's UEFA who are being left out in the cold. And it's UEFA who ultimately will pay the price, because the domestic leagues will not expel these clubs. They might threaten to do it, but they won't, because if the Premier League goes and expels clubs, they will then have a huge legal and financial bill on their hands from Sky, whose only carrot left is the Premier League. And what's their draw? It's the top 6. It is not the rest of that makes up that team. And that's just been completely, if you step back, take a cold hard look at this thing and look at what you're talking with, that's where football is. It's no longer this local, let's go out and see what happens.
Yeah, agreed. We've been patronised since 1992, lied to since 1992, to be honest with you. And, you know, now the amount of hypocrisy that that's been peddled by the likes of Sky and Gary Neville, you know, appealing to the real fan, whereas Sky, you know, introduced the idea of pay-per-view into the sport in Britain, and now that they're in danger of losing control of that, it is now, you know, on their agenda. I completely agree with you, Phil, and it makes complete business sense. The 6 best salespeople in the company want to have a say now in running the business. That's essentially what's going on, and in any other line of business that wouldn't be a problem. However, you know, the people who really feel that they do own the sport are up in arms. And I have to say, I've been really down about it all day. I respect your view because, you know, you've a more global and forward thinking certainly than I am. But I'm old school, and I love the idea of Leyton Orient or Tranmere Rovers or Leicester City, you know, being able to dream about going certain places. And I know those are pipe dreams, but I am old school. But my vision and the vision of most fans out there is completely divorced from the reality of what football is. And I think it's been a 30-year haze we've been walking around, and Sky have sold it to us very, very well, that it's tradition, it's this tradition of this. But now, you know, we've been prodded awake. Listen, guys, from the moment that the first credits rolled on Sky, as it was, Sky Sports Channel, and Alive and Kicking was sang by Simple Minds, football had changed completely and irreversibly. But we've all been caught up in the romance that's been sold to us. It's the biggest marketing con ever, really, that we all thought that we kind of owned the game. We haven't, and we haven't in a long time. You know, you only have to look at the ownership roster. We are owned by a consortium of people who own several franchises, and they view our game, our club, as being the most archaic, you know, and in order to move it alongside what their other business interests, this is the way they move forward. But that depresses me. It's the reality, but I feel really bad. And I tell you, looking at Gary Neville, who, you know, didn't whinge about, I know he was a player, but didn't whinge about Manchester United walking out of the FA Cup, and didn't whinge about the amount of sacrifices that Manchester United made in order to further their business interests at home and abroad. You know, you would think that the six clubs that went and did the dirty were Liverpool. It's just hypocrisy that I've seen over the last 48 hours. Phil, you're right, but I hate it. I hate that you're right. It hurts me, to be honest with you. Today's been sad, you know. It's been, and I think I've spoken to a lot of fans from Manchester City. I'll give you an example. A lot of guys that I go to war with, you know, over the financial fair play thing, and they're completely, you know, they feel like they've been robbed and they've been lied to, because when UEFA, who aren't fit for purpose, and we all knew that, when UEFA failed to overturn FFP, obviously the rest of the clubs and the lawyers of those clubs kind of thought, okay, if they haven't even got their own governance in check, What else have they not got in check? Oh yeah, their entire business. Let's challenge their model. Let's build our own model. And again, it's sad. For me, it's very, very sad. But yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I don't know about you, Berkey. For me, it's a depressing reality. It's like being told again at 10 years old that there's no Santa Claus.
I mean, just going back to '92, though, Peter, it's still kind of grates on me to this day, the fact that essentially they tried to hit the reset button, to the point where then for years after, obviously Liverpool don't win that Premier League as it's rebranded, the whole rebrand, obviously, like the trophies replaced and everything. Like they try and hit the reset button on the domestic league, and for years and years, it was the stick they're beating us with, Liverpool haven't won the Premier League. And, and then it started getting deep in the psyche of us. We haven't won the Premier League. And we were getting more and more desperate to win it. And, 13, 14 and all that went with that. And, they conveniently, these types of changes have happened before. They conveniently kind of...
Well, never structurally, never as
no, I know, but I'm just saying that you've got that used to, it grated on me for years, the fact that our titles were kind of, sort of pushed to one side. We had the Cup Winners' Cup, which was completely abolished, and that's kind of assigned to history and things like that. So we've been in not the same territory, but we've been in these scenarios where there's been some kind of fundamental changes which has kind of undermined the fabric of football and the fabric of what people have grown up and kind of got used to, and are now being termed these legacy fans. It's something that I absolutely hate. But I've been debating this in my mind since sort of yesterday, since it emerged. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I can see the good things behind it. I can see the bad things behind it. One of the things that I didn't like about tonight, and this has kind of got my book back up about the owners, is that they have been very quiet. The LFC tweets have just gone on like, this isn't the thing, and it's just business as usual and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously the manager, who I'm concerned about, he's going to be morally conflicted here big time now. The manager has to come out and give this interview. Sky set it, they set it up 100%. They wheeled out the quote from 2019 about how he was so opposed to it. They absolutely wanted to catch him in a kind of, in a compromise or, a backtrack situation last night. Fair play to Jurgen Klopp. He didn't give them that. You know what I mean? He absolutely, as I suppose we should come to expect. He sort of spoke from the heart. He gave his views. He supported the views that he always kind of said in the past, and I am annoyed at the way that the manager was put into that awkward, everything else to one side. I am actually pissed off at how they have kind of exposed Jurgen Klopp a little bit tonight, and I just hope it doesn't involve him really considering his future and potentially walking away from the club, because it's really sad after what has been achieved over the last couple of years, in particular with a team that, let's face it, we were in the wilderness for a long time, and all the feel good that's come back. Unfortunately, our fan base is being sort of torn apart by all of this, and that's the sad part for me.
Can I just put something right? The key complaint in this whole thing really seems to stem from the fact that there's really no qualification for it. Okay, if you take it back, if you look at what UEFA proposed today, and there's probably a PR war to be waged on this by both sides, right? But if you look at what UEFA are going to do with the Champions League, it was a disgusting competition. It was an absolutely disgusting competition. It's not even like, at least this has a semblance of true competitive nature to it, and that you've got 20 teams, 2 groups of 10, with a straight out top 4 in each go into the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final. That you get to the end of this, right? The new Champions League is 36 teams in fuck knows how many groups, right? I think it's 4 groups of 9 or 2 groups of whatever it is, right? What's it, 2 groups of 18? Where you play. So, yeah. Where you play random 9 matches or 8 matches or 7 matches, whatever it is, right, against a teams that are decided by an algorithm, and then the top 8 get into the last 16, and teams from 9 to 24 then play off against each other for the right to go in as the other 8 to the last 16. Then you play down through your 16, 32, 24, to whatever fucking 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, right? And it guarantees them 10 games each. So you have this convoluted bollocksology, which really is just designed to get UEFA more money, ultimately, because more matches means more money for UEFA. And the clubs have said, bollocks to this. And their whole thing was that 2 clubs or 3 clubs who had high coefficients would never miss out on the tournament in there, i.e. England. You're the only country that has essentially 6 clubs as opposed to 3 or 4 clubs, right? So we'll create this rule where you can have an extra 2 clubs in based on heritage. And that will probably avoid the likes of Liverpool missing out if they don't get top 4, or Arsenal missing out if they don't get top 4, because their heritage gets them back into the top echelons of the competition. And there's still this perceived idea that where you finish in your league gets you into this competition. All they've done is removed it. Like, the bit that they've really missed the trick on is explaining to people how these 5 teams get in. And I think ultimately the logic here is we get this league up and running, and then we create a feeder tier. And then you will see eventually some level of relegation and promotion between these 2 tiers. And the likes of a Celtic, Ajax, Porto, Lyon, they would all exist in this tier beneath the upper tier. And those teams, the top 4 of those teams will be promoted, and the 4 that finish in the bottom places would be relegated into this second tier, or you have some type of playoff structure or something like that that generates more interest rather than just this sort of quarterfinals, semi-finals, final at the end of it. So you have a lot of interest for all the teams across Europe, which they need to flesh out. But I'm sure they've gone with the idea of the 20 teams, because imagine trying to sell, well, we've also got this other competition over here, whatever it is. If you get the 4 billion on the hook for the television, you've got all the ratings coming in, you own your streaming, you own your television rights, and you're just selling them across the globe. You're going to have teams queuing up to get in as part of the package. They're going to want to be there. Bayern and Borussia Dortmund to put out statements. None of them at the moment have categorically ruled out that they will never be part of the European Super League. They've just said that they prefer to stay with UEFA's tournament and continue on. They feel it's the best way to further the interest of the game. It doesn't say they'll never ever go into a European Super League. They're not going to put themselves in the hole. They're going to sit back and see.
Nobody will.
They're going to see how it goes, what the money is, and when they realise they can't compete with the teams that are in this, they're going to say, well, actually, we need to go and compete in this. So even if you have this initial break where UEFA is seen to be the bastions of football and whatever it is, ultimately, the money decides where teams go. Ultimately, the money just ends this. And the other bit that people seem to have completely lost the plot on is that the domestic game is gone. The domestic game becomes pure, in my opinion. Because again, it's who gets to fight for that one position at the end of the season. Who gets to be the best team in the league and is that number 1 side?
It kind of gets us back to almost 1991, kind of levels of competition, because back then, obviously, you there's one team who got in the European Cup every season. It was the champions. It was you were fighting. The prize was massive back then. It was absolutely massive. And there's an element of that potentially, return. And I guess it's that long ago that we can't really remember back to all of those kind of so-called dead rubbers that are going to potentially re-emerge. But it's a relatively new thing, but it won't be the first time that it's occurred. For some people, they enjoy this whole top 4 race. But how many times did we, hear the likes of Arsenal fans complaining, why are we celebrating top 4 every season? Like, it's not success. finishing fourth is not success. You know, it gets us entry into a competition, okay, and then generally you don't get, you know, you don't even get out the group stage and stuff like that. So, like, you know, it's the Champions League. For people to think like the Champions League, it was perfect and it was, you know, the pinnacle, blah blah blah. Like to me, that competition was still, you know, diluted to an extent. Like we played so many meaningless games even in that competition. You know, some fairly bang average group games. You know, so like that competition wasn't that competition isn't and wasn't perfect. And by the way, they tried to rebrand that and I know they kept the trophy, but like, you know, I couldn't, like 9 times out of 10, I couldn't stop calling it the European Cup, to be honest with you. You know, it's another thing that grated on me, the whole bollocks of the Champions League brand and all that sort of stuff. So look, that's just the kind of the traditionalist in me. But look, Chris, I'm dying to hear your thoughts because you're sitting there patiently. Go on, fire away.
I've probably had a bit of time to think about it. I think last night I was a bit. It felt a bit raw. It felt a bit of a. It felt like things that I like about football. You know, the jeopardy and things like that. So, like, you know, top 4 isn't a trophy, but the jeopardy of missing out actually made shit games quite exciting. She said, "Fucking hell, we have to beat these." So I always thought Super League would come in, but I always thought the Super League would be like a rebrand of the Champions League. That's what I thought it would be. You know, you have to qualify in some way. You know, whether that's England get 6 spots instead of 4 spots. I mean, purists will say it should be the Champions League, the league winners, but those days have been gone for 30 years. I think people need to sadly accept that's never going to happen. I can't. It doesn't sit comfortably with me that Liverpool won't be in a domestic league, because I quite like the fact that when we play Real Madrid and Ajax and Bayern Munich, it's an occasion because it's rare, and I quite like the fact it's rare. It's like, fucking hell. When we played Bayern Munich 2 years ago, I was like, we haven't played this in 70s. So in my lifetime, I've never seen us play Bayern Munich, so it was quite exciting. Whereas I don't want every game to end up being like every year we play Porto, and Porto becomes like a running joke. I was Porto again. So playing Porto is not exciting. But I think if you're playing Real Madrid every year, twice a year, I think it loses its shine. And that's why, you know, I like the jeopardy of football. So I'd like to be some jeopardy of getting in there. It feels saying that they're going to bring in a second competition, which will be a promotion relegation, almost like the second tier is like the new Europa League. Fine. I maybe let's get my head around it. I mean, it's the way I'm built. Until I see all the details, the ins and outs, and how something works, I'm never quite settled with it. I can adapt to most changes, but I need to see the ins and outs. But from what I've seen, it's very broad. It's a bit wishy-washy for my liking. Both of them. And I don't just mean the new Champions League looks shit that they're bringing out. And this one they've got now, it's got a bit more structure to it, but there's still too many questions for me. I mean, I've seen rumours now that they're going to say, "Oh, the second teams will get out of the league." I can't see them doing that because I think that's like cut your nose and spite your face.
Yeah,
I think they know that because.
But it's as you said last night, Bracky. It's high stakes poker, and you have to show. You know, there's a lot of posturing. The chairman of UEFA come out today and said, you know, everyone's going to be banned and everyone's this. There's none of that's going to happen. This is just a pure power play. Pure power play. You know, you can't blame as a business. You know, as much as I'm depressed and you're depressed, you can't. And Phil's delighted. You can't blame the businesses for wanting to further their interest in, because essentially it's an invisible brand. It's a brand that basically is the players and is the clubs, and you have an organisation that's not fit for purpose in UEFA, basically making most of the money. That doesn't make any sense in any other industry. But this one, and the clubs have said no more. You know,
I generally thought it was a bit of a power play, which was the clubs have gone, as Phil says, bollocks to this new Champions League idea. It's crap. Cool. So we want a bigger piece of the pie because we're playing more games for your competition, and we want a bigger say as founding members or regulars in the competition of how it's run. Because some of the stuff you're thinking of is crap,
and they're powerless.
And that's why I thought, oh, they've done this. Almost like at first when the Super League email came out, I thought this is all these big clubs calling the bluff, going, "You didn't think we'd leave? We're leaving."
course.
We'll leave an ECA.
Look at Germany. Look at Germany. It's not.
I was waiting. I thought at some point we'll see a backtrack or not a backtrack. A meet in the middle point. We'll do this. But now there's talk, as I think I read in the BBC, that they're claiming that they've already signed a 23-year deal. If you sign a 23-year deal, that's not wishy-washy pipe work. That's pretty far down the line. That's further down the line than people think.
Yeah. Okay, I think people have also gotten away from similar events that things like this have happened, and how the authorities end up coming back in on side. So if you take, we were talking about this as well with Shane last night. If you take the current Heineken Rugby Cup, or whatever it's called, the European Rugby Cup, or European Rugby competitions in place, that replaced the old Heineken Cup, right? And that essentially became a reality because the French and the English teams were all offered a shitload of money by a TV broadcaster to go off and set up their own competition and leave the existing European Rugby Cup, right? And there was a big kerfuffle about it, and eventually they changed the structure of the competition to fit what the clubs wanted, and all of a sudden they were all best of friends again, and then the Confederation got in on the money. Now, they weren't getting as much money as they got previously for running the competition, but now because the clubs had a say, and I think a 55% stakehold in the overall competition, right, which they didn't have before, and were getting a bigger share of the pie, and they were able to bring all the Irish, Scottish and Welsh teams back into it. I know people are going to say rugby, but as a the premise is the same here. Like, logically, and I know Sean is really upset about it because he's just been going back and forward. I know from talking to Andy, he can't make his head up why this is happening. And if I was being really cynical, this is a non-reversible power play. So no matter what happens here, right, if there is a coming together of the two parties to bring the structure back into a holistic point of view,
it won't be
those founding 12 clubs have guaranteed that they've either secured their position in this tournament for life, right, or for 10 years, or for whatever amount of years it's going to be, and they are going to get the substantive part of the cash involved in any holistic solution in a competition. And that competition is going to be closer to the European Super League that was announced last night by them than the, I don't know what, the make you up. Like, you couldn't, it's like the shittest version of a Pro Evo tournament that you could come up with. Like, it's the Master League.
I like me problem solving, my algorithms and stuff like that, because I'm a bit of a geek. Even I was looking at it going, Jesus fucking Christ. I just want to watch a game of football. At least the Super League one, I kind of go, well, if you like how it's made up or the money side of it, the physical structure is two groups of 10, top four go into a knockout tournament. I can get that. And I think if Liverpool is still in the domestic league and this is the new Champions League, I could sort of get around that. I do feel there should be some reward for, and look, even if they're only in it for 1 year, if West Ham finished second this year, give them a crack at it. Now they may just get beaten all 20 games and that's it, they're done. But they got beaten all 20 games. They played against Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Barcelona. They made £350 million. That keeps West Ham going for donkey's years, and they build off it. That's the bit I would like, and then I think I can move on. I mean, I honestly thought the power game for this was, and I still think it's the power game for the big clubs, is I think they eventually want either their own streaming service or a Big Six streaming service. So, like in Canada, is it DAZN? You pay them to like $20 a month, and you get all the football.
Yeah,
I think that's what Liverpool want. Liverpool want Liverpool TV to be, you pay me £25 a month for Liverpool TV, but you get every Liverpool game, no matter what competition they're in, and we get all the money for it because we can market it and do it better than Sky can. And that's the other thing I was surprised that's also got to be Pip. I'm trying not to swear. Has been the high horse hand bringing by Sky. Sky pissed off because they're not getting it. This is Sky.
And BT, by the way, they come out with statements. BT Sport. I mean, they've invested in the Premier League and the Champions League in a big way. So they like, I think it was either Neville or Carragher. I think it was Neville. He was like, we all need to unify, Sky, BT Sport. But basically he was bringing out all the. It was a call to action for all of the.
Do you know what it was like?
You know what it was like,
Ray? It was like watching. Phil will subscribe to this. It was like watching Fox in the United States. It was like the Republicans on Fox telling you that.
Who owns Fox?
Really, it was propaganda. Who owns Fox? For that whole hour.
Who owns Fox, lads?
Exactly.
Who owns Fox?
But the thing
Uncle Rupert.
People are talking about, they did $14.99 pay-per-views during a pandemic, which everyone shafted them over and said this is crap. Does anyone remember Premier League Plus? The other the other channel that you can buy, you can have Sky Sports for £30 a month, and for an extra 15, you can have Premier League Plus, and they put all the big games on Premier League Plus. I remember that was about 15, 16 when they did that. So this shit's been done before. Yeah. It's because they're not part of it. So
and that's the thing. And you've got Gary Neville.
While I don't like it, while I don't like it, I'm not having Sky, BT, UEFA, FIFA, the FA are all going like holier than thou, and these are going to save us. Because not being funny, if UEFA and FIFA were better organised properly, politely, either they'd have thought of the Super League, or more likely, no club would dare turn on them.
Mate, they set up a bunch of rules that they couldn't even enforce.
What UEFA have done with the international competition, the whole introduction of the Nations League and making sure that the big nations play the big nations on a more regular basis. I mean, the principles are kind of similar, and I know there's the whole concept around promotion and relegation, but that's fairly token, really. Like ultimately what they want is they want England playing Germany, they want Spain playing Germany. This is so look,
I mean, picking up on Olivier's point, because that's my background, women's football, because I follow it. I just read that and thought politely that is and I could say because I am one, that's just male tokenism. We might do something for the women's game. It was. You may as well have actually not mentioned it, because it was bullshit tokenism. And also, in terms of the women's football, the Women's Champions League is quite a new competition. And if there's the Women's Champions League, it's actually more entertaining in general. There's actually a lot of good games in there. So I don't really know how that helps. And I'd be interested how they do if they are going to do a Super League for women football. As much as I love Liverpool women, and that's who I go with my daughter. Liverpool's women are in the Championship. You ain't going to put. I'd be amazed they're going to get away with putting Liverpool women in a Super League, but then it becomes really uncompetitive.
Yeah,
because this is my thing. This is the thing I laugh about is we're moaning this year that we couldn't compete with City because of all our injuries, because City can rotate, and we're all going to get 350 million, and we all could spend 55% of our turnover. That's great. City's still got $1 billion more than us. United and Chelsea have got $1 billion more than us, so they're still going to outbid you for everyone anyway. So are we just going to become a mid-table Super League side?
No, this is the one bit I wanted to cover off, because this is what hasn't been covered off, or is only starting to get airtime now. There is a salary cap in the Super League, and the idea of the salary cap is to retain a competitiveness throughout the league, right? So essentially, and it's based around commercial turnover that the club is being generated. So essentially, what's driving this? We've talked about the money from UEFA, but UEFA's absolute inability to implement and manage its own FFP rules. I go back to John Henry coming in and setting up the club and setting up the FSG thing and saying they were only interested in making sure that they'd only buy into a club once they knew that FFP was going to be a real thing. Okay, so this is the whole thing. As soon as FFP was challenged by Manchester City and it fell apart because UEFA couldn't enforce their own rules. Like, you can almost see the head. Fuck this, lads. We're out of here. If we can build a structure where we can have something that we understand, i.e. a salary cap based around commercial turnover, because they're used to that in American sport. And I hate bringing this back to American sport, but there's a reason why 40 owners in the Premier League are Americans, right? There's a reason why Perez and Barcelona were able to sell this to the Americans, because they understood the model. They understood how these caps were going to work. They understood how all this type of stuff was going to work, right? And he played to his audience. They have been trying to implement a Super League since the formation of the Champions League, since 1998. And the other thing that people forget about, the reformation of the Champions League happens once every 10 years, right? This has been talked about once every 10 years when they've gone and made tweaks to the Champions League, be it 3 teams coming in, 4 teams coming in, changing the way. Remember, we used to have 2 group stages in the Champions League when it originally started. There was the first group stage and the second group stage that went through. This has always been a way to stop a formation of a European Super League. All it's been is to slow this formation down. So no matter how we look at it, something was going to happen, right? The question was who was going to drive the change, and this is the only question that was going to happen. And people can, whether they like it, don't like it, whatever it's going to be. The fact is, the money is too big in sports these days. The money is too big in terms of franchises that are being sold. And we didn't sign that deal with Nike thinking that we were going to be still selling jerseys like it was 1984. Getting your brand in front of billions of people and selling that brand to those billions of people is the only thing that matters to FSG, because that is what the contract says. The more you sell, the more you get back. It is hyper capitalism, and that's what happens when you get into a globalized hyper capitalist environment, and that's what we live in. And we can not like it, we can dislike it all we want, but that's what we live in. And their ideal, and this is going to kill people, but the legacy fans, I think, is a horrible sideshow that's been very well worked by PR that sits where they want to get the message out that the domestic league is better and the Champions League is better.
I mean, the thing is, sorry, Phil, just to cut you off.
Yeah,
going back to 92 again, the one thing that we did really badly back then, obviously on the pitch, we fell off a cliff. We were at the end of a cycle. It was bad timing in that respect. But we compounded it by our lack of commercial acumen off the pitch. We absolutely lost out in that financial race to Manchester United at the time, at the forefront of it, and even then to Arsenal, further down the line. We either embrace this or we get left behind, and I certainly wouldn't want to get left behind for a second time, because we definitely got left behind in the 90s because we kind of stuck too closely to our old principles. And I'm not saying we trod all over our what we stand for and what we are as a club, but at some point we've got to be realistic, and we've got to try and push on, and we've got to try and, unfortunately, we've got to let go of some of the things that maybe we hold dear to our heart in the interests of maybe the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that's the side I'm starting to come down on at the moment, notwithstanding the fact that I do not want our part. If this is at the cost of our participation in the domestic league, then I'm dead set against it. I absolutely value the domestic. I actually value the domestic league on a personal level more than I do, than what happens in the European competition. But from a restructure of the European competition, I absolutely, I'm absolutely okay with this scenario right now.
Someone's making you laugh here.
He's gone to Anfield.
Don't know what he's doing.
He's made the bed. He's made popcorn. He's on his way to Anfield. He might actually. You never know. Someone might have knocked on his door, and maybe there's a protest starting off in Barcelona.
There could be a Barcelona protest, and that's. I wanted to ask him.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm really intrigued as to what the situation is there.
The question I've still got is, you talk about the salary cap, which sounds at least like a plan. I'm still haven't seen full details yet of who monitors them. Do you monitor yourselves? Because in the nicest possible way, it's all nice and hunky dory between these 12 now. But let's be fair, the big English clubs plus Tottenham and Arsenal, and the Spanish clubs don't always get on and don't always agree. So how is it governed? Is it a vote system? I
would stick Platini and Sepp Blatter in there to
what could go wrong? Oh yeah, what could go wrong?
And John Delaney.
Yeah, put the Barca president in stars. What can happen?
Tell you what, don't start about Barcelona.
I couldn't resist. I saw you come back. I couldn't resist. How was Anfield?
Barcelona?
Was Anfield okay?
Sorry, I think your point is. I think your question is if you go the full model that I think they probably will, which is the American model, right? You have a commissioner, and it becomes they put in their own governance that sits across the leagues. And like the reason why that there are 5 billion and 6 billion assets in terms of the teams that sit there is because they all adhere to the rules. They sign off on the rules and they sign up to the rules, and the rules need to be changed. Like this year is the first time the NFL has ever seen a reduction in their salary cap because of what's gone on the pandemic, because they haven't had fans in the stands and everything, and all the clubs are being hit by it. Like there's a massive salary cap squeeze, and players are being let out to free agency purely because they can't afford to keep them on their books. So where they haven't gone and changed the rules because they know the rules are right, but they're saying this is a 1 year hit, and the next year, because the new TV money kicks in, then their salary cap will grow by somewhere around 30 to 40 million. So they'll be able to bring the players that they want back through. So they basically are running. They run it that way, and that's the model. Again, I'll go back to that's the model that most of the owners that we're talking about have looked at and said, this is the model that we think is the right model for our teams because it fits what we do and how we work as units.
See, Master of Disaster there saying how did Tottenham get into this conversation? I have them down as being the first franchise to move. I think the Hotspurs will end up in New York, maybe, or even Chicago. Phil, you could be supporting the Chicago Hotspurs in 10 years' time.
The reason Tottenham are there is because of that stadium. That stadium allows them to do football, allows them to do NFL. People won't like hearing that, but the reason Tottenham there is it is a prime location for sport. And if you want to get a lot of foreign visitors to come to it, fly to London, watch the Super League. I could see how
three London clubs out of 12.
As people like, you get Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea are probably one of the most successful clubs in since 2000. So you can't, you can see why Chelsea are in there. I mean, I've loved how Chelsea and City have been painted as, they've reluctantly joined. I did it, yeah. We'll give you 350 million. Oh, okay, then. That's how reluctant it is it? So, the only thing I've got a question for Phil is just about, and this is not me being, what's the word? Cheeky. I'll say cheeky. I think it's the right way of putting it.
He's coming
on again.
He's got on again because I answered Barcelona. Do you think this will be the end of transfer fees long term? Because let's face it, that is one thing that seems to catch out every American owner or every a lot of foreigners that we have. They all go, "Well, I've got to pay 35 million and then pay his wages," because they all look in horror when they find that's how football is, and that's how football has been for forever.
I still think we're about 15, 20 years away from that. I think depending on what way this goes, if this ends up ultimately being a replacement for domestic leagues, then yes. If it doesn't, if there's always a domestic league there, there'll always be transfer fees, because these teams will hoard talent in the way Chelsea has, and then they distribute that talent back to the domestic leagues to allow that talent to develop. So think about it. If Liverpool or Chelsea and Arsenal and United and City all get kicked out of the league tomorrow, that means all their players that are out on loan to all those league teams become ineligible for those league teams because they're owned by the parent clubs. So the clubs will just go, they're our players. You've taken away our right to play. You've kicked us out of the league. You can't have any of those players. Think about the impact that would have right the way across football. Right? Because
none of these potential sanctions are enforceable legally.
No, I know, and it's also the idea that they'll just cut the Champions League this year. If they cut the Champions League this year, they will literally have a massive issue, a massive lawsuit on their hands, because
I mean, the telling line was what I can't remember. Is it? One of the main guys just said, like, we've already checked with our solicitors. We don't think they've got anything they can hang us on. And to be honest, if you've got City on board, whether you like City, you don't like City, they have the best lawyers, and they've already proven twice they can outwork UEFA and FIFA at their own game. So if it's on their terms, whether you like it or not, that's going to. I mean, I love this one from Nay, which says, "Did you see the government statements? And not being funny, lads. They can't even work Brexit. They can't get people vaccinated. They can't.
It's populism. What you're seeing across the board, you're seeing everybody sticking their hand up to be popular.
Yeah, that's I wish there's this much outrage over who got PPE contracts, but that's probably a separate conversation.
There's only
I'd
one
be more
country,
upset over that.
Exactly. There's only one country in Europe that would be credible when a government or even a governing body says that something is not going to happen. Now that's Germany, because what they do is they build a proper governance model. They make sure that it's legally sound and they enforce it. The Brits, as soon as they smelled a few quid, to be honest with you, around 92, they actually didn't bother to build a governance model. And to be honest with you, UEFA is the same. UEFA is just a fundraising organization, to be honest with you, self-serving fundraising organizations.
But can I just on Chris's point about the number of London clubs? If you go back to an interview by Perez, essentially this whole thing is also a strategic play by the Spanish clubs to break the stranglehold on TV rights, because they know that the 6 clubs in England are getting more money from the Premier League TV rights than they're getting in Spain for their rights, and they're able to sell the rights individually. So by going into this, they break the stranglehold, and that's the reason why the 6 English clubs are included in this. That's the reason why Tottenham is in this and Arsenal is in this, because they knew they couldn't get the English teams in unless they took all 6 in. Yeah. Had they gone and tried to take United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and City, which have been, say, the top 4 for the last 2 years or whatever it is, then there would have been some level of those teams turning around and saying no, because we're not leaving Spurs and Arsenal, because we've all been in the Spurs and Arsenal position of just being outside the top 4, right? So the only way they could get them in is get the 6 teams in. That's why the 6 are in there.
And isn't it this rule that the Premier League teams, they can't be booted out if there's a threshold, isn't there, of 3/4? Over 3/4 have to vote you out, essentially. Yeah. So those 6 will obviously not vote, one another out, sort of thing. So that's one thing that they've avoided by having 6 in this. So I mean, Pete, what's kind of the sort of the rhetoric in Barcelona,
the rest of the clubs are panicking.
Okay,
and Barcelona and Real Madrid are saying nothing. Well, Perez, as you know, everyone's asking the question: who's the power broker behind? Well, he's the broker, but who's the power behind? So obviously he's gone off to China or somewhere, and he's gotten billions behind. So everyone else is, because let's face it, what you left with Real Betis, Valencia, the best of the rest, it's a panic, and there's more money in finishing 17th in the Premier League than there is at the moment, as it stands, in winning La Liga. So it's a complete power grab, but the worry here is, well, what do you want us to do? We literally can't afford to match anything domestically. So they're just going to let Real Madrid and Barcelona do whatever they want and hope that they leave time to play in to fulfill their La Liga fixtures. To be quite honest with you,
so there's no talk over there about them being expelled from La Liga.
Because the rest of the clubs become automatically unsustainable. It's just there's no interest.
They've got Atletico, they've got Real, and they've got Barcelona. The only other team that would ever have gone into that top 4 in the most recent past is Valencia, and they're in
the early noughties.
Yeah, and they're in a financial hellhole at this stage. There's always been 1 or 2 teams that pop up to join in with those 3, but that's the 3.
Sevilla every now and again, maybe. I mean, if you go back to the start of the Champions League, Deportivo La Coruña were regulars in it, weren't they?
Sevilla are the best Europa League side of all time. If we get the second tier of this European Super League, those lads are a shoe-in to be in that second tier.
They'll become the West Brom. They'll be promoted, relegated.
Yeah, I suppose with the German clubs, the issue that's not an issue. This is because Germany has governance. Is obviously fans have 51% say, always. So you've got to sell the dream to the fans. So that's why Bayern and Dortmund, because Bayern, I don't know, Bayern and Dortmund's owners could say we really want to be in, but until we can sell the dream to our fans, we're knackered because we can't go. Whereas I think that's why there's so much uproar here. And Pete's gone again. He's so upset. I think that's why. I think that's some reason why there's so uproar here, because there's people have not been consulted, or fans don't feel like so. But sadly, we don't have a big enough say in the club. As much as we would love it, we don't. There's no governance to say fans have to have a say in football clubs. They probably should, but they never do.
Ultimately, though, Ray, and you're a match going Red, right? I think an awful lot of them have gotten really, really, really upset about the fact that this idea of legacy fans are talk that's out there. But I don't. I think that's just a PR play, a clever PR play by a side that's against this, right? But like, talk to me. Like, what's your feeling? You're a season ticket holder. How like?
I think, well, look, as I just said there before, ultimately for me, European competition is secondary, domestic competition is primary. I still want Liverpool to be in a 20 team league, to go and try and be the champions of England every year. And it's been great to win European Cups twice, in recent history, Champions League in recent history. But ultimately, for me, it's the domestic. Like, I will still get up for and excited about a game against Leeds and a game against West Brom and a game against Manchester United in a domestic setting. That's ultimately what football is about for me. The other bit is just the cream on top, really, and it's always been a result, obviously, of being good domestically, that you then earn the right to then go into competition against other teams in Europe. I guess it's that element, isn't it? It seems to be that element that, like, earning the right seems to be, really sort of against people's kind of principles and morals, I guess. And by removing the need to have to earn that right, then ultimately you're kind of sticking it to the smaller club or the smaller man or whatever. And we like to think that we do collectively stand for something. We don't just look after our own self-interest, but we're also there to try and protect others who aren't, as successful or who aren't closer to the top of the football pyramid. But as long as the domestic competition stands, then I'm not against this. And we'll see. The thing is, we will see people's views about being against it, because it seems to be the collective voice at the moment. Yet the people up in arms, the disgust about it, people rushing to conclusions before they've even seen all the facts, and that's, for me, there's still an element of this where it has to be a watch, there has to be a watch and brief over what unfolds. I mean, the salary cap thing has only just come out, literally sort of in the course of us playing a football match and so on. So there's loads of stuff still to come out. So I'm not going to make my final judgment on this. But we have to, all I would say is we have, like, nothing lasts forever. We have to accept that, progress, advancement, changes, they do come along, and we are, I guess, fortunate to be in that conversation, because I'd hate to not be in that conversation, put it that way. Like, if and this isn't a go at Everton, but if I was an Everton fan now, like, I'd be absolutely livid, because you'd be on the outside absolutely looking in, because you'd have absolutely no chance, I don't think, of getting into this Super League anytime soon, just as you thought you might be about to crack the Champions League. But
Can I just wrap it up with one final comment, because a lot of people have said this. Why didn't the club tell the people involved? Why didn't? Well, basically, from what I know, stock market rules would have prevented the owners of the clubs informing staff and the coaches and anyone else about what was going to happen, because you've got publicly listed companies and they have to go with an official press statement when they're going to do that. So otherwise, it would have been seen as insider trading. So I come back to it, whether these are corporations, they aren't football clubs. And also, just one last thing, because it's really annoyed me, this idea about legacy and history. Liverpool Football Club exists because the guy who owned the ground at Anfield wanted to have full control over who bought the products in the ground, right? And he binned off the Everton board because they wanted to have a range of products, and he wanted to sell only his own alcohol in Anfield. And he got them out and set up Liverpool because he wanted full control over the economic control, the economic rights of the club. He wanted full control over who was getting the money, and he wanted control over where the money was coming to. John Holding, go and read up the story of John Holding. Get away from the John. What was the other? The two Johns. There was the guy from Ulster who was commonly referred to as the founder of Liverpool. Go read about John Holding, who was the real creator of Liverpool Football Club, and why he set the club up the way he did. It was all about him maximising his interest, and it was about maximising a profit in a football club so that all the shareholders would gain something out of it.
It's not a new concept.
We're talking 1892, 120 years ago, and this is essentially, we're back around. It's the same idea again. The owners of the club now want to maximise their investment and their profitability so they can realise the maximum amount for their shareholders.
But it's different when dirty foreigners do it, Phil. Remember, it's different.
Sorry, I just made me chuckle that one.
And I can say it.
Olivier's on fire. That's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was one a bit further back up here, but yeah, I mean, the Boston Liverbirds. I guess if we end up in the Boston Liverbirds territory, then we can then we can officially say fold it. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm still at the point where I think I'm still in the no at the moment. However, look. The one thing which I don't think people do, I mean, you can't do it on social media, but and people in the comments aren't liking it. At least Phil's given a constructive counter arguments, which, to be fair, as maybe a few things I've thought about and gone, some doesn't sound so bad, some in my head still sound horrific. But I'm at the moment where I'm thinking, like, I still want Liverpool in the domestic league, and then, but until I see more details, I'll see how it goes. And do you know what? It won't be the first time I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up, going, saw it wrong. You know what? I was too reactionary, saw it wrong, hold my hands up, which not a lot of people want to do, but you know what? People always want their first take to be the right take. My gut feeling is it's not right. If I'm proven wrong, do you know what? I'll come in and I'll say, oh, I was wrong. You know, but that's where I am at the moment. I don't like the idea of them not being in the league, a domestic league, which, I mean, I'll be honest, still don't think that's going to happen. But with regards to this Super League or Champions League 3, whatever they're doing now, I'll withhold judgment a bit more till I see a bit more detail.
It's going to get more expensive to go to games, though, particularly in that competition. I can imagine, you know.
Oh, yeah. Your £9 tickets have gone out the window.
Yeah. The 77 quid ticket might seem cheap in 5 years' time.
They'll with a new £9 ticket.
So, you know, I think that's, you know, that's going to be probably one of the biggest negatives. Really, it is going to be, you know, I guess one fear I would have is, you know, I've got young kids, like, you know, by the time I get to take the two of them to the game, like, what's it actually going to cost me? You know, is it going to be realistic to take them to games? That's a genuine concern.
I mean, that's the next thing you want to see them put out there is what is your ticketing policy? I mean, look, put it out there. Look, whatever they say they're going to charge, no one can stop them.
Yeah,
people could try. You know, obviously Liverpool did the walkout a few years ago, but how many other clubs will do it? You know, it's a bit easier when it's on your owner and you're making your owner not charge you. When it's a governance and this is the price, because maybe that actually do be a bit of a flat price. This is the price for going to the Super League, whether you're going to Tottenham, Milan, or Liverpool. That may be one way of at least making it clear. I mean, I don't know, if you're getting £350 million, maybe you don't need to put up ticket prices, but I think that's a bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah. By the way, there was some comments in here about not liking the thought of playing Madrid every season or Barcelona every season. I'm actually the opposite. I prefer to play them every season than play some of the dross that we've been playing in the Champions League recently.
I'd say they're going to rotate when teams play against each other. There's two groups, and you've got a fixed amount in each. You get 1 year, you get whatever it is against this 6, and then the next year go on and play the other 6, and that's what they'll do. So you'll only ever play them every 2 years. So you won't have this constant boredom that goes on. So, which is the logical. It's a product. Look, at the end of the day, the idea of this is to make it the most attractive footballing product that's out there, so that you can sell it for the maximum amount. Let's be honest about it. That's what it is. This is why it's the super clubs in terms of what it is. Right, Ray, wrap this up. I want to go and watch some draft stuff. to be totally honest with you.
When is the draft, Phil?
April the 29th. And I'm still hoping that the Bears are going to pick up a magic trade and trade up and actually get a franchise quarterback for the first time since they had Luckman in the 1940s. But come on anyway, so that's the second thing.
Pete's already left us multiple times, so we'll say good night to Pete. By the time he comes back, we'll be gone. And we'll say thanks and good evening to Chris.
No worries. See you all Friday.
Yeah. I mean, I feel for you, Chris. It's already crossed my mind that you are going to get absolute pelters if you've got some of your normal kind of Leeds, Aston Villa, Leicester type of guests on Friday. It's going to be a little bit hairy, isn't it?
I can get you some. I can get you some Arsenal, United, City. We should only talk to those people now.
No, to be honest, I don't mind because to be fair, I've had interactions with all of them. So they've all got their point of view, and it's pretty similar to mine. But look, they know it's not. If I say, they know it's not me. It's not me making decisions. So I think what I'm probably doing on our show is I'll put it out there now early so people know. Is I'll give the first 15 minutes. I'll give every person on it 5 minutes, and I'll get a timer on. Say your piece on Super League. And then once your 5 minute time is done, that's it done. And then we'll go back to predicting football and getting random silly questions in the chat because the idea of the Friday show, it's supposed to be a bit of fun.
Yeah,
we've got in a nice way. There's loads of shows on here where we could do serious chat, we could do tactical chat. I like to get the Friday forecast where I can. Quite light-hearted. It is supposed to be making silly predictions. It is supposed to be me predicting a result and actually getting it right, which I think I've only done twice. So it's becoming a bit of a running joke now how many I get wrong.
Some of the lads were very good with the predictions on Friday. I have to say, fair play to some of them. There was some correct scores there.
I mean, I think I got the Chelsea one, but not to blow me on a trumpet.
And Phil, thanks for your insight. I knew when the glasses were on. I knew when the NFL gear was on that you meant business tonight. So thanks again. I think you've done a very good job at positioning a counter argument to the majority of what you will see over the next few days and what you've already seen. And Pete, we did say thanks once, but you were out the room for the 15th time.
Dad. Poor little
being dad. So thanks again, Pete, and we will definitely be interested to see how things develop on the Barcelona side of things over the next.
It's a 2-club league, 3 max, so they're just going to get their own way. To be honest, Barcelona are nearly £1 billion in debt, in the same boat as Manchester United, so it's good news for them.
Yeah.
So,
for them and Madrid, big time. Yeah, it's a kind of, it's come at the right time. It's a bailout of sorts. And I tell you what, that La Liga is extremely exciting at the moment, isn't it?
Fuck me, right? This is 10 minutes after 7. You wrap this up so we can all go. Christ on a bike.
I'm doing this to her.
I tell you what, like you will be like you're a horrible prick when you go to a meeting, and when somebody wants to wrap up, we're coming on to the next one. You start talking. So, anyone got anything? Are we all finished? Well, hang on a second. I just want to fuck off.
Who's going to win the Liga, Pete?
Barcelona. Just a white
Barcelona.
Just a white pizza.
Anyone but Barcelona. I'm going to go Atletico. I think Atletico will.
Are you going to say good night, Ray, or what?
I am going to say good night on that.